You're good.
Our speaker today is Bill Koen, who is the horticultural specialist for the city of Lakeland. He has been with the city of Lakeland for over 52 years, is that right?
52 years and 6 months.
Wow.
And he ain't going nowhere.
Wow, that's amazing.
Somewhere, believe me.
That's absolutely amazing. You were educated, you went to Lakeland High School and also graduated from Polk State College.
Yes.
So Bill will be talking about the roses in the city of Lakeland's Rose Garden with an emphasis on some of the heritage roses that they have there. So it is my pleasure to introduce Bill Koen.
My other part of the city job, I'm also the commercial landscape inspector for the city. And also I do site plan reviews on all new commercial projects like apartments, restaurants. I've only done, this month already, I've done 11 site plan reviews on new projects that are being proposed for Lakeland, including a giant one out there on Lakeland Highlands Road just before you get to Sam's Club. There's a big open field, that's going to be an Orlando hospital, believe it or not.
Wow.
So it's just one thing after another. I've done 11 this month, and when I left work before the tropical storm, there were 3 new projects downloaded into this Project Docs thing. So they're just constant. I think we're the fastest growing city in the United States, except for Boise, Idaho, and us are tied now. We're fastest growing, so it's just an amazing amount of stuff is being built here right now. It's just amazing. Before I get started on this other thing, I'd like to point out too, another thing about the Veterans Park. They just unveiled a new statue there this Saturday, or it was Friday. It was Friday. Now they have a statue for every single war that the United States has ever fought in. This was one to the Spanish-American War. It's the Buffalo Soldier statue. It's definitely the most intricate statue of any of them down there. It's just amazing all the history they've incorporated into this statue. So if you come to that ceremony too, so you'll be able to see the new statue too, the Buffalo Soldier. So actually had a bunch of guys on horses during the parade that left the park, and they were Buffalo Soldiers basically. So
Wow.
So anyway, I've got a couple of handouts here which I can pass out. There should be plenty of this one. This is just basic information there about our program. We've got at least 20 rose gardens around the city, and that was the worst thing that ever happened to them was that Hurricane Ian. They're all, a lot of them are large hybrid tea roses that are grafted on Fortunia rootstock. About half of those things were laying flat on the ground after that hurricane. It didn't kill them. We were able, the thing is we got to go through there and cut them back and stake every one of them, and we still haven't got all that done yet. So it was just a disaster. It actually, when the roses laid over on the floor, the ground, we haven't even got to some of them to stake them yet. And they're already putting up new sprouts from like it's forming a new upright bush, So we got to get those done pretty quick before it's just one big mess, We'll be working on that. I've got another handout here, which is basically, I should have enough of this one too. This is some additional information I have here that we may want to pass this out to about some of our heritage roses. I know it's the Heritage Rose Society, so we might as well just get started with some of our heritage roses. So anyway, one of our rose gardens is the Veterans Rose Garden. It's in Veterans Park, and I try to theme my rose beds. So I have because it's a Veterans Park, I have 4th of July climbers there. I have all the roses there basically have something to do with military history or that sort of thing. I have Memorial Day roses there, and also this is another one we have there. This is the Mr. Lincoln rose, which does qualify as a heritage rose because it's over 50 years old. It was introduced sometime in the 1960s. Very fragrant, tall, upright rose. These things are probably 8 feet tall in the garden right now. So, but good fragrance and everything to it now. I'll show you another one we have down there too. Sticking with that same theme, we have the John F. Kennedy rose. Which also qualifies as a heritage rose now. I think it was released around '66 or something maybe. So we try to stay with themes on our rose gardens. This is Chicago Peace. This was actually a mutation of the original peach rose. This is more of a The original peace rose is more of a light pink rose. And the reason they call this rose Chicago peace is that a lady went to a store in Chicago a long time ago, maybe 40, 50 years ago, and she thought she was buying a regular peace rose. And when she got home and it bloomed, it was just different color, and that's why they call it Chicago peace. Because it's just a mutation that occurred, you know? Yeah, it's a great rose too still. The problem with these roses, especially the peace roses, they're so easy to get the black spot disease. It's just a constant struggle we have. And we do spray our roses probably average every 10 days or so. Some of them I don't spray as much, you know, some of the easier ones to grow. But I use a basic combination on the roses, which is a chemical called Cleary's 3336. I use just a spin-off of it now, but thiophanate is called. It's a good fungicide, especially for mildews. And also mix that with Mansade, which is a zinc manganese combination. And those two things still seem to work pretty good as far as controlling the black spots and the mildew. So, and also put another chemical in there called abamectin. Abamectin is for the spider mites, and that's another huge problem with roses, the spider mites. So, but I got to show you something else here too. Though. You know, then I use those chemicals because they're old generic things that are really, really cheap. But this is a new chemical. When I get in trouble with black spot, I resort to this chemical called Paget. And when you open, I'm not going to open the Paget right here, but if you open it, it smells like mushrooms. And it's actually made from mushrooms. It's only not, this container right here is only $95 for the pound. And I put one of these into a 100-gallon tank of spray, so it gets kind of pricey. So I only use this is when I have some trouble. That's when I'll resort to this stuff. But this is the best fungicide in the world, they say. It controls all diseases, basically, root diseases, leaf spots. It's just an amazing chemical. I think you could buy it online, but you know, I buy one of these every couple of years for my little rose garden in my house. I got maybe 15, 20 bushes, and I just have a little 2-gallon sprayer. I put like a tablespoon of this in there every couple of weeks, and I don't even have any black spot. This is an amazing chemical, Paget. It's from BASF, which is the leader in the world as far as new technology, as far as chemicals. Their products seem to be very safe, very organic products, basically what they produce. So we keep this one in mind. This is, for a homeowner, you buy one of these, $95, but it lasts you 2 or 3 years, So if you just have a little 2-gallon spray or whatever, so that's definitely something to keep in mind there.
You use organic? Have you ever tried organic chemicals?
This actually is an organic chemical. It's made from mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
They found these mushrooms that kill other mushrooms. They formulated this thing from those naturally occurring fungus that kill other fungus. It's an amazing product.
Would it kill those mushrooms, those fungus that grow up in our lawns then too, do you think?
I don't know about that. But as far as diseases, it does very good on, say if you had that gray leaf spot in your St. Augustine grass, the St. Augustine starts looking really rough in the fall because of that gray leaf spot disease, this will take it out easy. It'll kill that fungus. So it's really some great stuff, yeah. So we do theme our rose gardens, like the rose garden we have at the RP Funding Center, for instance. All the roses in that garden have something to do with the entertainment industry, because that's what they do there. They have entertainment events there. So that garden has Dick Clark, which is probably the best landscape rose that I've ever seen. This thing just grows like crazy. It's just amazing how well this thing grows. And it's 8-foot tall bush, hundreds of blooms on it at a time. But all the roses there, we have Marilyn Monroe, the Marilyn Monroe rose in that garden. We have all the ones in there basically have something to do with the entertainment industry. So I like to theme my rose gardens. So we talk about another group I'd really like to talk about today. I don't know if y'all are familiar with these or not. It's a group of roses that's coming from Australia, and they're called the Brenda Bella roses. And they come in, I didn't realize there were so many Brenda Bella varieties. There's over 30 varieties of Brenda Bellas now. But they produce, the blooms, when they're in a bud, they look like a little tiny hybrid tea bud. But the bushes only get about this tall. We're growing them on their own roots. We're not even grafting on Fortuniana. The bush grows about this tall and just gets maybe 3 foot by 3 foot wide bush. It's just loaded with these little hybrid tea-like roses. And I didn't. If you look on the back page, this is really cool. There's 30 different varieties of Brendabellas now. This is one of the new ones called Tequila Tiger. It's on the back. This is Tequila Tiger.
Wow.
Isn't that something? And there it is. It's on the handout there. When the Brendabellas started, they just were basic solid colors like pink and white. Those are the only ones I really have right now. But I just went on the internet the other day when I was getting ready for this presentation. I said, wow, look at all the new Brendabellas. You know, they got like 30 different ones now. So, and they're a lot more interesting than the original ones too. So, another group of roses I really like, and they kind of have this old-fashioned look to them. They're called the Downton Abbey roses. It's kind of based on that television movie series they have. And all the roses in that collection they're all like named after the characters in the TV show. And they have this I'll show you some examples of these. This is a pretty lady rose right here. They kind of have that old-fashioned look to them. Here's another one here. They're really easy to grow. The disease is not bad on them. And I probably got maybe a dozen different Downton Abbey roses through my collections right now. So there's another one. This is Edith Darling here. Which is another character from the TV show there. And they have that old-fashioned look to them, you know. Yeah.
Do they smell?
They all have fragrance. They do. They're all fragrant. Yeah.
And which garden are they in right now?
What's that?
Which garden are they in?
They're scattered all through the collection. There's some most of them are at the Magnolia Building downtown, which is right next to Hollis Garden. And we probably got 200 roses in that garden. It's huge. It's all the way around the building now, you know. We wanted a big rose garden there because of the fact that they have lots of weddings there for one thing. So we thought it was a great spot to have probably our biggest rose garden. So, but they're everywhere in the city. We got the libraries, Kelly Recreation Center. They're just everywhere. So that's another really interesting fact about our program. I've got information on the pageant fungicide here if anybody needs more detailed information on it. I've got a handout on that. So let me say a word about we do have actually an antique rose garden, which Dr. Manners actually produced these roses for us, grafted them for us. And the antique rose garden is right, if you know where Hollis Garden is, and you know where the Magnolia Building is, in a grassy area right between those two buildings. And by the way, we do need some replacements, so we'll probably get back with you soon, okay? There's probably about 4 or 5 of them that aren't doing so well anymore, and we'd like to get those replaced, so. Yeah. So at this point, does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. After the hurricane came, I never had black spot before. And after the hurricane, I've just had so many problems with my roses. And I know there are bugs are coming off those oak trees and getting into my roses. I mean, is there something I need to do? I mean, the black spot has been really bad.
It's been terrible. I think it just stayed too wet there for a while, and that's what gets it started.
Yeah, 'cause we didn't really have that much rain. I was surprised we got it all that 2 days, but after that it was pretty
Yes,
clear.
we've actually had a below normal rainfall this whole year, I mean, except for those 2 events. There was a lot of
How do
rain.
you spell that? I was going to put that down.
I will get you a handout on that.
Yeah, give me the handout, I'll give it out to some people.
Here.
There we go.
Everybody needs a handout.
I'm really
That's more
discouraged.
detailed information on pageant. The pageant is the silver bullet, I tell you. This stuff's just amazing.
You could buy it and split it with a neighbor.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, yeah. I mean, you could go together on this stuff, and I've just been totally impressed with this
Is it a
stuff.
powder?
It looks like, when you open the container, it looks like granules. But you mix the granules with the water, and it's, mix it a little bit for, say, in a 2-gallon spray or whatever, and you have a perfect control at your house for not only black spotted rose diseases, but many other diseases too, like the lawn diseases and things. I would use more of this stuff, I just can't afford it, is the problem, you know? I mean, yeah.
Are those roses commercially available, like at nurseries here in Lakeland?
Uh,
Available?
I get most of my roses from a guy, okay, he's called Central Florida Blueberries, and he always has a booth there every week at the farmer's market downtown.
Mike?
Mike is his
Yeah,
name?
Yeah.
Mike.
And this is where I get my roses from right now. He gets the rose bushes from Weeks Roses out of California, I believe, somewhere on the west coast, and he brings them in and he gets them these little tiny 4-inch things, and he puts them into a 3-gallon container and then gets them up to size and sells them. He's probably got roses now at the farmer's market every week down there, so, yes.
Bill, what are some of the roses that you have in the antique rose garden?
I don't know those very well. I know there's ones I've seen before in different gardens, you know, but I don't really know the names of those offhand. And Dr. Manners would know the names of those because he's the one that.
And I don't remember what's over there.
Yeah. So anyway, they're doing pretty well. I mean, they look
Are
good.
they labeled? Are they labeled?
They need to be labeled, they really do, but there's climbers, they're mostly like shrub roses or climbers, that's what we basically have down there. They're vigorously growing right now, they look great, you go down and take a look at them for yourself, but it's been a really interesting thing for us.
So go early, eat at the bistro, at the Magnolia, look at the roses, you know.
Yeah, the bistro's a good place to eat, dear.
Yeah, it's a very good place. They have a lovely Sunday menu, breakfast brunch menu, and you can go and look at all the roses. And you've got the lake right there. It's very, very relaxing. We do it after church. We did it 2 Sundays ago after church.
Yes, historic, the actual.
Yeah, it's really
There was
very,
a
very nice.
lady a
there.
long time ago, Frances Langford, who actually became Miss America, and they named that whole walk around that lake, the Frances Langford, yeah, they call it that,
so
yeah.
check out the Roses House Garden, eat at the bistro.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the name of the people, the guy at Blueberries, what, at the barn?
His name is Mike.
Central Florida Blueberries.
Oh, okay.
His name is Mike, and he's there. He has a booth every Saturday at that downtown.
He's between Pine and Bay.
Yes, that's where he always
Is
is.
this near the
But
Purple
closer to
Onion?
Bay.
Right in that
Yeah,
area.
right.
Is it around the Purple Onion?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
block before the Purple Onion.
Okay.
But he does roses. He does a lot of other interesting
He
crops
does,
too.
he
so-
has beautiful plants.
He does.
there.
He has great
Yeah.
plants. He really does.
Very, very nice.
Don't you have a bunch of volunteers that kind of tend to different rose gardens?
Fortunately, we have the volunteers, because roses are, as you probably know, are very labor intensive. I mean, that clip, you know, we could not afford to pay city employees to go out there and snip all the time, you know, we'd have to, yeah, we have maybe around 15 volunteers right now. They kind of adopt different rose gardens, they tend to do that, so they claim some ownership in the different rose gardens, you know, like the one at Veterans or the ones at the Magnolia Building, Library, whatever, so.
Are they
form
from
friendships.
Garden Club?
Yeah, some of the different circles do.
What's that?
And form friendships with others that are there.
They do, yes, they really enjoy it. I mean, it's been a win-win for us, definitely, you know, I mean. Let's see what other information I have today. Oh, pruning is very important. The sharp clippers, I swear by these Felco clippers, they're from Switzerland. And these are probably the best clippers in the world. I know Site One, which is a local, you can look them up on the internet, Site One, they actually have these in their shop, in their store. Out there on the, kind of on the Cumbie Road area, out in that area, but just look them up on the internet. Site, SITE 1. So it's a big national chain of supplies for, you know, chemicals and tools and all that kind of thing. The Felcos are probably the best. You know, they last forever.
Bill, how do you manage chili thrips?
I hate to say I do this sometimes. I actually use Safari. I know people don't like to use Safari because it's so, well, it kills a lot of other things it shouldn't be killing, you know. It's an insect. you know, systemic insecticide basically. I use one called Triple Crown sometimes, Safari, one of those type of chemicals to control it. It can be a big problem, you know.
I'm just thinking, we also use Safari, and your roses are always cleaner than my roses. I'd like to know why.
Yes. Well, we spray a lot, to be honest with you, and that's, you know, some of those things are extremely good chemicals. But the problem with Safari is it's not kind to bees and things like that, you know. So we don't use it unless we have to, you know.
Yeah.
I'm getting off the subject. There's another chemical on the market. It's not really that useful in roses. A new chemical, it came from BASF, the same company that makes this. It's called Vintegra. And what the guy that, actually the developer of Vintegra won a Nobel Prize for this chemical. And what it does, it kills only piercing and sucking insects like aphids, mealybugs, scales, that kind of thing. But it doesn't have, it will not hurt a bee, a butterfly, anything, or any beneficial insect. I've actually sprayed monarch butterflies with this stuff. It has no effect on them. But it'll kill your bad insects like your aphids and your scales and mealybugs, that kind of thing. But it's a really amazing.
Could you spell that?
Oh, Vintegra is Ventigra. Vintegra. It comes from this BASF company, which they're really the leaders in all that kind of stuff.
VENTI.
Ventigra.
Oh.
It's an amazing chemical.
Sounds like that would be good like on camellias and.
Yes, it would be great on like T-scale on camellias, that kind of thing. But see, I have like mixed gardens, like say Common Ground, that's our biggest butterfly area there. We also have other pretty plants in there, like copper plants and everything. Say if I get mealybugs on my copper plants in there, and you know we have milkweed scattered all through the thing and all that, so I can actually spray the copper plants there and kill my mealybug or scales, whatever, and not hurt the butterflies. So it's an amazing chemical. Let's see, we talk about, the thing has all the different, you know, most of the major diseases in this pamphlet here. Someone was asking about crown gall, and I don't really know any control for crown gall except just to remove the affected tissue. I don't know what else to do. I mean, someone asked me that question the other day, so. We just have, a dieback is another problem I really have with my roses. Is, you know, the dieback disease is always seems to be a problem. You just, all you can do though is just kind of remove, you know, go below where the bad stems are and just cut it out there. I don't know what to do with that one either. So let's see if we have any other main things here. We use Fortuniana rootstock on most of our plants. I mean, the real thing about Fortuniana rootstock, see, it never really goes dormant, so the roses keep growing all year long. And also, it doesn't get nematodes in the soil. It's immune to the nematodes, and the vigor issue is so good. But Fortuniana is really the way to go. And Mike Woods, the guy we're talking about, the Central Florida blueberry guy, his stuff's all grafted on Fortuniana rootstock. So definitely want to go that direction with them. Let's see if we got anything else here. Water is always a good thing. I mean, better if you don't have a full sun environment, it's better to have morning sun as opposed to afternoon sun. So, you know, if you get the morning sun, then the leaves get dried off quicker. You don't tend to have so much disease. So morning sun or full sun is the best way to go on those. I spray. I mean, you can see some of the pictures of our rose gardens here. This is one at Common Ground, as you enter the Common Ground Park, which has been a really amazing project for us. We've got roses there, we've got butterfly plants, we've got all kinds of pretty unusual tropicals, all kinds of, I think it's more like national and state awards even. It's been so good. So
Where is that?
Common Ground Park is on Edgewood Drive. It's right across the street from the main Cleveland Heights golf course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We need to build like 3 more of them in Lakeland, I think, and probably.
And you said that you're still feeding your roses too.
Yeah, oh, let me talk about the fertilizer. We use a 12-6-8 fertilizer, which is what Dr. Ravad always recommended back in the day. He was a professor here for years, and he kind of came up with this. We're basically using his formulation, but Harold's makes our fertilizer for us, so we use a Harold's 12-6-8 with all the miners in it and stuff. And it's just been, ever since we switched to it like 2 years ago from another company, the roses have just gotten better. I tell you, they're just really vigorous now. So we're kind of fortunate. The other company went out of business around here, so we switched to Harold's. It's really gonna really
Where do you get that at? I mean,
You know, if I was gonna,
Supply store?
Harold's is hard to deal with. We have to buy the stuff in tons, like 40 bags. But I tell you who might be able to help you on these kind of issues is Peterson's nursery, Karen Peterson. I bet she would have access to those, she's very into the roses and everything. And I bet she could help you get a good fertilizer, and also maybe some of these chemicals like Pageant, she may have the ability to have that too. So I would check with her. Yeah.
Because doesn't she still grows all her own roses, doesn't she, Bill?
She brings in Fortuniana grafted roses, I think, once a year.
Rose
But-
love.
Usually February.
Yeah, she'll have it at one time of the year, and then, but I think most of the time her stuff is grafted on Dr. Huey, which is another rootstock, which before the Fortuniana deal came along, it was considered the best rootstock with this area, Dr. Huey. Actually, the Nelson's roses in Apopka, they actually invented the idea of using the Fortuniana rootstock, so it's really been the
She'll
thing
get
for
her
us.
roses in probably at the end of February usually. is when
Yeah.
they come in.
Yeah.
Exactly,
At the
yeah.
end of February. Last year it was late. They had some delay.
Delay.
They didn't come out until March, I think.
It was late, and then she had some later ones than that, but she said she'd be glad to have us come there and talk to us as a group, so.
Yeah, she'd be a very big asset in all this, she would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that we have is, I don't know, we travel a lot and we go to different botanical gardens around the country. We saw one, I don't know if you've seen this mess yet, it's a disease that started in the Midwest. What is that one called? It's the.
Rosette?
Rosette disease. This stuff is a mess. They found it they've actually found it in a couple of the panhandle counties in Florida now. But I hope that stuff never comes here. We saw the big rose garden in Dallas, Fort Worth. They had this old rose garden that had been there for a long, long time. So walk into it, these big stairs lead you down into it and everything. But every single rose bush in that garden had that rosette disease.
Oh, my God.
It's just, there's nothing you can do. It just, when the new growth comes out, it's all twisted, and once the plant gets it, there's nothing you can do. And I think they ended up pulling all their roses up in Dallas, because.
No, that was Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth, it's Fort Worth, yes.
And they did.
Yeah, they had to put up there. I've seen this stuff all over the South. You saw it in South Carolina recently. At the University of South Carolina, they had a rose garden there. But the stuff is just, there's nothing you can do for it. I mean, so far it's not in Central Florida, but hopefully it'll never get here, 'cause it is a disaster, yeah.
If I could add a little note to that, I have a friend here in Lakeland whose aunt in Tennessee gave her cuttings to bring home of her rose. And she called me up and said, "How can I root these?" And I said, "I want you to burn them right now, because you're introducing the most horrible disease that Florida could have. So be careful if somebody, especially in the middle states, Tennessee, Kentucky, in that area, or out into Texas, if they give you cuttings or a little plant, be really careful, because there's a good chance you're carrying it back with you."
It is, yeah, it's just, it would be, that's how it's gonna get here probably. Like what you're saying, somebody gives you a cutting that is an infested area, maybe in Kentucky or somewhere. That's how, I think that's how it'll eventually get here. Yeah.
What is your feeling about bare root roses compared to like a potted rose?
You can buy the bare rooted roses, but see, Fortuniana roses are never bare rooted. They're always already rooted in a container when you buy them. So I would stay with Fortuniana. I mean, it's just the way to go with roses. I
I
mean,
just think bare root roses take forever to grow.
they do, and they're not gonna be on Fortuniana rootstock either, so I don't see any real reason to use. They're growing fine on their own roots. They're not even grafted. And I've got them at the golf course, Cleveland Heights Golf Course, in a circle, right where you go into the back of the restaurant there, and they're just like 3 feet tall. They just bloom all the time, so.
Wow.
So maybe just the Brindabellas are really a good landscape rose, basically. The blooms aren't gonna really knock you out because they're gonna be small buds and everything, but just for a basic display, they're really something to look at, I tell you. Is there any other questions?